Hello. Recently, my friend told me that he's exhausted. Why is he exhausted? He told me that he's exhausted because he's exhausted of the role of being a leader. He's exhausted because he's exhausted of the responsibilities as the class representative, and as well as from what I think, um, he's exhausted from being a leader in group projects, group assignments, because we are from a same course, diploma in computer science, and our final scores are taken from our group assignments. Hence why we have a lot of group assignments, and some of us may or may not have to lead in the group assignment. I asked him, why are you exhausted of the role of being a leader? He said he's overwhelmed. If I remember correctly, he's overwhelmed with all those assignments, as well as the role, the responsibilities of being a leader. It all stagnates. Now, this made me wonder, because I'm also a leader in a few of the subjects, as well as a class representative, if I could say, if that even counts as a class. Anyways, yes, a club representative. And it made me wonder, would being an why would being a leader be so exhausting? One of the things he told me is that you have to initiate a lot being a leader, which I emphasize, I sympathize. You have to initiate in group chats, ask them how they are doing, what's their progress in the project, assigning meetings where you have to ask for the schedule, or even brainstorming ideas. You have to you have to pray that they actively participate in those brainstorming sessions, and not just you talking through a wall alone. Okay, which I think that's one of the most exhausting part of being a leader. Hence, this made me raise a question. What makes a good leader? Now, this comes from my experience, and do note that my experience is far from ideal, because I've only been actively participating in the role of a leader. I've only been actively participating in leadership this year, sadly, because I've always been the kind of a guy that just just goes with the flow, let other people lead me, follow other people's decisions. And now that I've entered college, I want to be different. I want to try new things. So being a leader is one of my ways of trying to change myself. Anyways, what makes a good leader? From my experience, of course, you have to initiate. That's one thing. You have to initiate, and you have to be energetic. Okay, doesn't matter what the group members think, doesn't matter how exhausted the group members are, doesn't matter how exhausted you are as a leader, you have to lead. That's your responsibility. They are waiting for your commands, waiting for your instructions, and you have to give them instructions. So being initiative, being active, being able to initiate will help a lot. And it gives the group members a sense of security, if I may say that, because it lets them, it makes them feel that you care about the project. Of course, you do care about the project, but they may not know, right? So being active, being an initiative makes them realize that you actually care about the project, actually care about what you're doing, and you have a goal in mind. You have a clear goal. So being a leader is also being part of the team, right? So you have to collaborate to make the project a success. In order to make the project a success, you need to desire, you have to desire it to be successful. So hence why being active and initiate is important. Moving on, distributing work. I think distributing work is one of the hardest, if not the hardest, part of being a leader, because it is very hard to distribute work, depending on the project, of course. It is very hard to distribute work while making sure that the workload is equal for all of the group members, because projects can vary from one another, and you cannot use the same method of splitting up the work. Like, say a presentation, we have the introduction, the content, the conclusion, the content and the conclusion. And sure, you may or may not have 4 points in the content and 4 group members, so you can split all 4 points to each group members. But what about the intro and the conclusion? Do you just randomly give it to someone? Do you just give the intro to the first guy that presents the first content, and the conclusion to the guy that presents the fourth content? Do you guys do that? Because I find it quite unequal. And I think being a leader, we should tolerate some form of inequality, because distributing work in an in an unfair way, unequal way, at least it's better than not distributing work at all. That's what I think. Okay, but of course you will, as a leader, you do have the responsibility to try your best to distribute the most equal workload as possible, the most fair. You do have to try your best to be fair. But in situations like these, where there's a lot of variables and it's too hard to distribute work, I think it's fine to tolerate some form of unfairness. And another thing is to not hide the unfairness, just blatantly tell them your unfairness. Okay, one way to reduce the unfairness is to, let's say, all of us will work, one particular group member will work on this intro or the conclusion, but all of us will look at the conclusion or the intro so that we could give suggestions or critiques to better improve those conclusions or introductions. Example. So we would associate all the group members in a discussion for the part where the one member is working on it. Okay, I don't think this is limited to those parts where it is distributed unequally. I think this could work on any distributed work, any distributed part. But those parts would be more essential to have this because it reduces the unfairness. That's what I think. What else? Communication. This also comes from my previous point. Letting them know your unfairness. Communication. Let them know what you're thinking. Don't hide things from them. Let them know what are your plans, what are your future plans. Let them know what you don't know. Let them know your flaws. Let them know what you think about the group members, what you hate, what you like about the group members. Just tell them all, because I think that itself would overall increase the cohesion of the team. I think it improves the vibe of the team. It makes group members know you better, instead of them questioning what you're thinking. Are you satisfied with their work or not? They know your opinions, and they would take action upon it. Hopefully, most of them do. And in college, most of my group mates are my colleagues, right? And essentially they are like my friends. So it's important to treat them like friends, of course. Well, of course there will be, you do need to have some boundaries. Of course, with certain boundaries. And one last point is, don't afraid to push your group mates to meet the deadline, because if you do encounter group mates that are resistant, you have no choice but to force them. That's the last resort, but it's for our group mates that are not obedient, stubborn. You do have to resort to force. Either that, or you just do the project yourself, do their part yourself. That's the last resort. What else have I learned? Assigned meetings. Assigned meetings, that's in communication. Overall, I think that's it. These are the things that I've learned of becoming a leader. Hopefully you guys have learned a thing or two, and I think that's it. Bye bye.